السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعد أما بعد. The topic for today's class is where to place the hands while standing after ruku. We know that when we do qiyam in salah, the first qiyam, when we say Allahu Akbar and where we read Surah Al-Fatiha and other qiraat, then the sunnah is that we are supposed to place our right hand over the left hand on the chest, as it has been discussed in an earlier session. But what to do when you stand up after ruku? So when you do your ruku, you stand up from ruku, and then you are going to stand up there, and then you go to sajda. So between that, where we say Sami Allahu liman hamida, Rabbana walakal hamd, hamdan kasiran tayyiban mubarakan fi. There are other azkar mentioned there as well. So what to do with the hands at that stage? Should we leave them hanging on the sides like without holding them, or are we supposed to hold them? This issue, the scholars, they have differed upon the ruling on this issue. So first, we will go through the different positions of ulama and fuqaha on the issues, and then we will analyze the evidences from the Quran and Sunnah presented from both sides or from each side, and we will try to analyze some of the strengths or weaknesses of those understandings. So the position of the fuqaha on the issue. So the first thing is that it has not been mentioned specifically, categorically in any hadith or in any action of any Sahabi or statement of Sahabi that what did exactly Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam do there on that position. So that's why this difference of opinion is there. Then after that, if we see the mainstream position always been that when you are standing, a brief standing, after ruku, then you leave your hands on the sides and you don't hold them. And this is the position of mainstream, whether they are mainstream schools of thought of fuqaha like Shawafi, Shafi'iyya, Ahnaf, Hanbali, Malikis. And about Malikis, we know that they're mainstream, they don't hold the hands in Salah any. And there are many others from earlier generations, not from Sahaba, because as I mentioned that it has not been specifically mentioned from Sahaba, anything about that specifically. But the generation after that, generation of Tabi'een, and then the generation of Fuqaha, we can see there that it was like a hegemony, a monopoly, or like a mainstream view that yes, we hold the hands before ruku, but after ruku, you don't hold the hands. This has been the position of the mainstream in earlier generations. Then we see, and this is quite evident in the medieval ages, in the Middle Ages, that the scholars from almost every school of thought, they categorically started saying and proving from evidence that whether it is the first qiyam or qiyam after ruku, you are supposed to hold your hands. And then there are many ulama from Hanafiya even as well, and then some Shafi as well, and mainly from Hanbali school of thought, scholars, they started taking this position that you are supposed to hold hands after uh, ruku as well. And this is the position supported by Imam Ibn Hazm rahimahullah as well, who is independent of all these major schools of thought. And Shaykhul Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he preferred this view as well. And this is the view preferred by mainstream Saudi scholars as well nowadays. And this view is that, as I mentioned, that whether it is before ruku or after ruku, ruling is the same, that you are supposed to hold hands when you stand in qiyam, whether it's before ruku or after ruku. And then there is a narration which is proven from Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah, that when he was asked about the issue, he said that both ways are allowed and you can do either way. According to him, it's allowed either way, whether you hold the hand or you don't hold the hands. Now, Imam Ibn Hazm rahimahullah, when he discussed this issue, he mentioned the names of a few tabi'in as well, that it is narrated from them or it has been attributed towards them as well, that they used to hold the hands after ruku as well. But what is proven with the chain, the earliest we can go back is to Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah, where he categorically said that both ways are allowed. Rest, as I mentioned, that we can see from the middle level of scholars from Middle Ages of Islam, that they are taking this position that there is no difference in first qiyam or second qiyam. Now, this is the position of ulama on the issue, that in the beginning it has not been categorized properly or like specifically that what to do before ruku or after ruku up to the level of sahaba. And then we see the generations which have categorically mentioned that we are not going to hold hands after ruku. And then comes the third age where we can see that people, they are differing, that categorically they are differing. And of course, both sides now they are claiming that if we see the evidence from the Quran and Sunnah, so even there is a silence on the issue in some extent at the level of Rasulullah sallallahu or Sahaba. But if we see the journal evidence, both sides, they would claim that their side should be understood from the generic evidence of the Quran and Sunnah. And then, of course, the third view is there anyway, that Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah, based on this balance of evidence, he took the position that both ways are allowed and optional. Now, if we look into the evidence of the people, of the ulama who said that you are supposed to hold hands after ruku as well, they took the evidence from the journal ahadith where this is mentioned that Rasulullah sallallahu used to hold his right hand over the left in salah when he is standing. So from those ahadith, they say that it is obvious from these that this is general, so you cannot differentiate between first qiyam or second qiyam before ruku or after ruku, because the ahadith are general in meaning. Like for example, this is a hadith from Sunan al-Nasai, and there are quite few hadiths with this similar wording, but for example, I have presented two ahadiths here. One is from Alqama bin Wa'il rahimahullah. He says that his father said that he saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam idha kana qa'iman fi salah, that when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was standing in prayer, qabada bi yaminihi ala shimalihi, he was holding his left hand with his right hand. Now they say that, look here, the father of Alqama, Wa'il radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he is saying that when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was standing in salah, so it's a general. It didn't mention whether he was standing before ruku or after ruku. So the ruling should be the same for both places. So this is one hadith. The second hadith which I brought up here is from Sahih al-Bukhari, where Sahal bin Sa'd radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he says that kana nasu yu'maruna an yada ar-rajulu al-yad al-yumna ala zira'ihi al-yusra fi salah. That people, they used to be ordered, and of course this order was from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that a person should place his right hand on the left forearm in the prayer. Now the evidence from this hadith, how they deduct is that in this hadith, Sahal bin Sa'ad says that in Salah, in general, you are supposed to put your right hand over the left. So wherever something is categorically proven from a hadith that where to put the hands, you are supposed to put the hands there. Like in ruku, is categorically mentioned in a hadith that in ruku you are supposed to hold your knees with your hands. In sajda, you are supposed to put your hands on the ground. It's clearly mentioned in a hadith. In tashahud, in jalsa, when you are sitting, you are supposed to hold your hands on your knees. So this is categorically mentioned. So what they say that whatever is left after that, wherever there is no other position has been mentioned in a hadith, then you are supposed to hold your hands on your chest, because that is the only uh, general position which is mentioned in this hadith. Now, this is the evidence, the generic evidence that whenever you are standing in your salah, then you are supposed to hold your hands. So same should apply to uh, uh, standing after ruku as well. So this is the positive evidence. Then they bring a prohibition. And that prohibition is from Abu Huraira radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he prohibited from a sadal in salah. What is sadal? Sadal is hanging, letting something hang. Now, what is that? It could be the hanging of clothing, like your cloth is hanging. So this hanging is not allowed. And then they go beyond that. And of course, they are not allowed. Many scholars, they mentioned that. They say that it's not limited to clothing only, rather it includes the hair as well. Like your hair should not be hanging from your forehead. Like if you have big hair, you are supposed to put them on both sides, or they are going behind, but they should not be coming forward towards your face, like hanging like that. And then one step forward, they go that the other body parts should not be hanging as well. So if you don't place your hands on your chest, then they would be hanging on the sides. And this is prohibited under this narration. Now, the problem here is that one thing is about the authenticity of this narration. Although Shaykh Al-Bani rahimahullah, he said this is Hasan Hadith, but there are other muhaddisin who declared it as a da'if narration. One problem is with the authenticity issue of the hadith, and the other is that if we make this irsal or hanging so wide, then this irsal, hanging of hands, happens in salah anyway, even for those people who hold it after ruku. Like for example, when you go to ruku, before, when you say Sami Allah, Allahu Akbar, and you raise your hands, so your hands go in natural position down first, and then you go to ruku. And when you are standing after ruku, even if you hold the hands, first you will leave the hands and then you will go to sajda. So this little bit, like very little hanging will be there. And then there will be hanging of your upper garment as well. Like when you are wearing a shirt, that shirt will be hanging from the front or back. So this hanging uh, issue taken from this hadith as a prohibition, and to prove that you are not supposed to leave your hands on your side after ruku, this is not very strong evidence. Now the previous two narrations which I mentioned here above, in general, normally that type of evidence is quite strong. But the problem here is that, as I mentioned, that although there were some of the Sahaba or some other people who used to leave their hands on side even in main Qiyam as well, but it was quite mainstream among the Ummah and scholars that they used to hold hands in main Qiyam where you do Qira'ah. But when we see that it was almost common practice, as far as we can see categorically, that they are not holding hands after ruku. So why is there is a difference there? Why those scholars who had the position that in Salah, in Qiyam, you are supposed to hold hands based on the hadith, but they were not holding hands after ruku. Now, what they say that these ahadith, they are related to first qiyam only. And for the second qiyam, because categorically it is not mentioned to hold hands, so we will go back to the natural position, which is not to hold hands as well. Now, the first position of fuqaha, they are quite strict. They say that in salah, you cannot claim to have natural position in salah, because they in salah you are not supposed to have a natural or default position anyway. So now we will see the evidence from the other side, that from where they take the evidence that you should be having a natural position, standing erect with straight arms, where they take their evidence from. This is the hadith of Musi Salah, or a person who was very fast in his salah, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him to go back and pray again because you didn't pray. So when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him how to do his salah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him that when you go for salah, asbigh wudu, do wudu properly, and then face the qibla, and then say Allahu Akbar, and then recite whatever you can read, like Surah Al-Fatiha and some other recitation, and then do ruku and stay in ruku until you are settled in ruku. And then summarfa rasaka, then you raise your head hatta ta'tadila qa'iman, until you are standing straight and erect. Now, from these words, the scholars of mainstream view who say that you are not supposed to hold hands after qiyam, after ruku, they say, see, in these hadiths, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used the word i'tidal, which means straight and erect. And this word i'tidal has not been used for first qiyam. So their understanding is that this is against i'tidal, this is against being straight and erect, that you hold your hands on your chest, or you hold your hands. So that's why they say that from this hadith, they take the understanding that when Rasulullah sallallahu said that stand straight and erect with i'tidal, it means that don't fold your hands. And as you can appreciate that this is not categorical, this is again just an understanding from this hadith. And then the same hadith with a different version in Musnad Ahmad, the words there are that warfa rasaka, you raise your head from your ruku, hatta tarji al idamu ila mafasiliha, until the bones they return to their joints. So again, from this they are saying that all the joints, they should become straight. So there shouldn't be any bend anywhere. So this is what they are taking from a different version of the same hadith. Now, if we see all these evidence, we can see that there is no categorical evidence from each side. Both sides, they have evidence, but the evidence is not categorical in that sense. It's like you, meaning, and when they understanding one side, they explain their understanding in one way, and other side they bring up quite a reasonable rebuttal against that understanding. Like for example, in this one where it says that all the bones, they come back to their joints, they say that there are other versions of this hadith where it is mentioned about the backbone only. So it is about the joints of backbone only. So that's why in this is an issue of ijtihad. And for me, what I would prefer in this issue is the position of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah, where he said that the evidence is as such that we are supposed to say that this is the matter of takhyir, this is the matter of option, that you can choose any one of the two. based on the evidence from both sides and based on the position of the fuqaha or understanding or analysis of ulama on the both sides. So this is what I can see in this issue. Is if brothers they have any questions, they can ask the question.